guest, our first guest of the day, joined us earlier this morning. He is a host from the Speak of the Devils podcast.
So he didn't hear your rant.
Football Insider. He didn't hear my rant. I'm sure maybe he is. Maybe he's dialed in. Brad, this is not a personal issue. I assure you, this is not personal. We spoke with Brad Denny earlier this morning on BYU Sports Nation. Here's that conversation. Brad, what does your daily regime consist of about 7 weeks away from the opening of the college football season?
Well, it's getting ready for this upcoming season, just kind of really getting back into the swing of things. ASU is probably going to open camp here in a few weeks. They got a rare Thursday opener. So, just getting back in the swing of things in terms of just kind of the day-to-day with the reporting, the podcast, getting, things are starting to get a little bit back to normal in terms of, the COVID restrictions down here. We were able to see some of the spring practices actually in person a couple months ago. So it's just, getting back in the flow and getting ready to finally see some ball up close this season.
Arizona State certainly expected to be pretty good this year. It's just how good? What are your expectations for this group?
Yeah, this is going to be a season that is probably the most anticipated since perhaps going back even to 1996.
Wow.
There are a lot of veteran players on this team, a lot of key returners. ASU was the beneficiary of a lot of the super seniors coming back. And since Herm Edwards got here, this 2021 season has kind of been the goal, the things that they were building towards. There was a lot of young guys that played, and now those guys are now key upperclassmen. So this is a season where if ASU is not very much in the Pac-12 South race, if not outright winning it, you could see a lot of upset people within the program and a fan base at large. And if you want to assign a win total, I think anything short of 9 wins, barring any kind of widespread injury issues, would be looked at it as a disappointment. The schedule kind of breaks favorably for them this upcoming season. So, if they're not challenging for that 9 wins or at least a South crown, then I think that this season might be looked at as a disappointment.
Brad Denny, host of the Devils Pod, is with us on BYU Sports Nation, breaking down Arizona State football. Now, when you brought Jake the Snake Plummer into the conversation in 1996, you caught my attention because that team went to the Rose Bowl, finished number 4 in the country, and really, for being honest, in the last 30-plus years, that's the best team that Arizona State's ever had. Is Jayden Daniels ready to enter that era or that stratosphere with Jake the Snake Plummer?
It would help. It certainly would help. And he certainly has the physical tools. During his freshman season in 2019, he displayed a deft passing touch. Last season, he really kind of showed off his running ability. But, he has yet to put it all together and find that consistency that those top tier quarterbacks, those legendary quarterbacks like Jake the Snake are able to put forth. A big reason for some of the struggles last year was the fact that his wide receiver group really was very inexperienced. Frank Darby was the lone veteran. He basically got injured very quickly in that opener, never was the same, and that left JAYDEN with a lot of freshman receivers to kind of work with. Plus, the run game was so good, they really didn't need to pass in the back half. So that's going to be one of the primary questions is can JAYDEN and this passing game take that next step? Because the running game and the offensive line look like it's going to be pretty good. But the big question is, if they can balance that out with an effective passing attack, then I think that's when ASU has the chance to go from pretty good to South contender.
I want to talk about those pair of running backs that were on the Doak Walker Award watch list this morning. Rashad White, really impressive. 10 yards a carry. I know there were only a couple of games last year, but still, come on. The Mount Sac transfer was impressive. And then, correct me on the pronunciation, but Chip Trainum. Those two are a nice little pairing there.
Yeah, it's definitely that kind of prototypical thunder and lightning combo. Trainum, is a guy that came from Ohio. Most people, 4-star recruit, a guy that many thought was going to be, Ohio State's lose, and all of a sudden he commits to Arizona State, comes out here. He did not look like a freshman last year. He is 230 pounds. He looks like a guy who has been around the program for a number of years, but he's also got some deceptive speed. But his real biggest asset is he is a guy that can just really pound defenses between the tackles. Rashad White was kind of the big revelation last year for this offense, is both a runner and a receiver. As you mentioned, over 10 yards per carry. He's a guy that, a little bit more taller, 6'2", about 195, but he has very deceptive speed. He's one of those guys that just does not look like he's putting forth a ton of effort, yet he's outrunning the entire defense if he gets a seam. Just real silky smooth. He was also very effective at catching the ball out of the backfield. So offensive coordinator Zach Hill has that option to kind of go with the thunder, lightning, and also look for another, a three-headed tandem in that backfield with Daniel Ngata. He was a four-star commit. Didn't really get on track much last year, but he had a really strong spring session. He's more of that kind of that scat back type, smaller in stature, but very electric. Also very good receiver as well. So you could have a lightning, thunder, and then if possible another electrifying form out of that backfield for the Sun Devil team.
Brad Denny is with us. He is the host from the Speak of the Devils pod. Brad, I know that there was a bunch of fallout on social media about the Arizona State program and potential allegations of some serious infractions when it comes to breaking rules in the NCAA, but then it kind of seemed to just go away. Was there ever any reality to any of that? And is Arizona State going to be in the headlines for the wrong reasons, or should we just kind of put that one to bed?
Arizona State just has to look down south to their hated rivals in Arizona to see the glacial pace that the NCAA likes to conduct these investigations. I believe the basketball investigation for the Wildcats is still ongoing. And so Arizona State is kind of taking a business as usual approach because this investigation is not going away, but it's not going to get wrapped up anytime soon. There are some interesting factors in terms of the dossier that was allegedly handed to officials that it contained proof and screenshots, emails of these allegations. I do think that we've maybe not seen the last of these allegations or these violations come to light. There's certainly a lot of smoke around this program in terms of how it's conducted itself, but in terms of actual fire, we'll leave the NCAA to figure out any kind of long-term penalties, and those are most likely going to be something that is down the road. So right now, I think it's going to play a role in 2021 in terms of just perhaps a focus standpoint, because even though they might say that they're just focusing on football, you can't help but have this as kind of a distraction at some level. But I think in terms of any kind of hard penalties or anything like that, I think that might be a year, maybe a couple years off. So the AAC was able to land a 4-star running back commit right after that news broke. So it might be impacting recruiting to a little bit. That remains to be seen. But if ASU can go out there in this fall and put together a 9-10 win season, that might help course correct some of the recruiting worries that these allegations might have provided.
We like to joke that BYU is also in the Pac-12 South because it's playing 4 of the 6 teams this year. That's not actually true, and 1 in the Pac-12 North. But anyway, BYU competing for the Pac-12 South. We're going to pay attention with a lot of interest in this. What's the conversation like in terms of who's the front runner? Do you feel like it's Utah versus the field, given how the Utes have been pretty consistent, or is it USC, who's always sort of lingering there? It's like, are they going to be good or not because they're SC, or is it Arizona State? It feels like an interesting race.
Oh, it's very interesting, and I think all 3 of those teams are probably a cut above the rest of the field. Utah, returns everybody every year. They're big and they're nasty on the offensive and defensive lines. They got some playmaking talent. They got a good secondary, but then the big question with them is, can they find a quarterback? Is Charlie Brewer going to be the guy? USC is always going to be kind of USC, just brimming with talent, but can Clay Helton and that staff actually mold those guys, take the next step? They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country, an Arizona kid in Keaton Slovis. And they have some questions on defense. Is Todd Orlando's defense going to take a step forward in year 2? And then, of course, Arizona State coming with perhaps the most expectations in quite some time. Maybe even, the 2015 Arizona State team coming off their second consecutive 10-win year had some expectations as well. This team, as mentioned off the top, has similar expectations, and the defense returns basically intact with a lot of veteran talent and a bunch of super seniors. The offensive line is back and probably the strongest it's been over the last 2 coaching staffs. Some dynamic playmakers in the backfield. You have a veteran quarterback in JAYDEN. So there's a lot of pieces in place. I think it's going to be a real dogfight. At this point, it's almost I think like you could flip a 3-sided coin or something like that, because I think each of those teams has a legitimate claim. I think the way that the schedule breaks out for the Sun Devils with hosting USC but then having to go on the road to Utah, where they've had some struggles in recent years, that could play a factor. So I think this is really a wide open race, and I personally have not figured out who I might put atop the South on my Pac-12 media ballot.
Brad Denny is an Arizona State football insider. He's with us on BYU Sports Nation. How would you sum up the impact that Herm Edwards has had on the program to this point?
It's interesting that, people can rightfully claim that, his record isn't, demonstrably better than his predecessor, Todd Graham. And I do obviously that that is factual, but I do think that, not all 7-5, so to speak, are created equal. By the end of Todd Graham's regime, the program had really kind of run out of steam. Some of the early successes and questions, it was probably time for a change. Herm comes in, and his first couple of years, he lays a real strong foundation. I believe that first year they played like 30, 32, true freshmen. And so over the course of these last couple of years, the big focus has been revamping this roster, as they call it down here, the pro model. They've reshaped the program to operate like an NFL franchise, and they want NFL size and measurables on this roster. And so in the last several recruiting classes, you've seen this team achieve that. So they have a bunch of guys who look like potential NFL players. Now, whether they actually can perform to a level to make that next jump, that remains to be seen this fall. But I think that what Herm has done is really transformed this program, infused a lot of talent, a lot of bigger, stronger, faster guys. And so now it's going to be a situation of 2021 is, in my view, kind of a referendum year. Is this pro model, is this new leadership model, everything that all the buzzwords they had at the introductory press conference, is this going to pay off? Is this going to be the year that they're going to show some progress, or perhaps a lack of progress? And then that might place the future of the program in question if they aren't able to meet those lofty goals, because this is a team that is Herm's, that is Antonio Pierce, his right-hand man and now defensive coordinator, that they've put together. If they're not able to reach that, that's a troubling sign. Or perhaps, all the work that they've put in, playing their guys, building that foundation over years, could pay off, with a South title.
Brad, we appreciate the time and looking forward to seeing Arizona State and BYU play in Provo on September 18th.